So firstly, thank you for everybody for attending today. I don't know if you found parking as tough as I did, as well as even the short distance on the highway that I had to drive. Challenging, but that's because we don't have GO Train. We've come a long way this past year. We've made significant progress, and we want to talk to you about that, and we want to talk to you about what our plans are for 2016. As you know, Niagara remains firmly committed and dedicated to seeing GO Train all the way to Niagara Falls, and we know that it's going to drive significant economic prosperity in Niagara. So today we're going to provide you with those plans, and we're going to walk you through a presentation that is going to detail where we've come from and where we're about to go. Matt?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess firstly an introduction into the working group for those of you who haven't sort of seen the composition of the group itself. Really, there's a number of members of council here that are representative of the advocacy and the work that's been done, both senior staff from across the local area municipalities as well as regional council. And really the task of the working group was to really develop the business case and to coordinate working with the province and the agencies. The primary speakers here today are going to be Mayor Sendzik, Chair Caslin, Mayor Diodati, Dan Carnegie, CAO from St. Catharines, and myself. My name is Matt Robinson. I'm the project lead for the GO working group, and certainly the other members of the GO working group as well are here to answer any questions that we may have. We'll do some introductions just to familiarize ourselves, but maybe first some rules of engagement. The primary speakers will be walking through the slides, so the visual here, you have a copy of that presentation in front of you, but we will be walking through the presentation itself, and the primary speakers here at this side of the table will be walking through and speaking to each one of the slides in turn. You're welcome to take pictures as needed. We'll pause frequently throughout the conversation, the presentation, to allow members of the media to ask questions. It certainly is going to be a bit of an open forum here. This is really a briefing, not an announcement by any means. So you're certainly welcome to interject and ask questions. Maybe at the end of each slide that may be appropriate. And certainly identify the person that you'd like to ask the question to. Otherwise, I can certainly take the question and answer it if it's sort of a fact-based question itself. So I guess before we get started, maybe an introduction from each of, we don't have tent cards or anything out, it's a little more of an informal conversation, so everybody introduce themselves just for our media friends so they know who it is that they're talking to.
Walter Sendzik, Mayor of City of St. Catharines.
Alan Caslin, Regional Chair of Niagara.
Jim Diodati, Mayor of Niagara Falls.
Dan Carnegie, CAO, City of St. Catharines.
Pat Dart, Lord Mayor of Niagara on the Lake.
Sandra Easton, Mayor of Lincoln.
Good morning, Ken Todd, CAO, Niagara Falls.
Eric Schlang, CAO, Niagara Region.
Mike Kirkopoulos, CAO, Lincoln.
Okay, well, let's start off. Recap. What we've presented back in April of last year was a business case. So this is not want, this is a need. And I think we've clearly demonstrated, we're documented every which way to center that we've done the homework, we're prepared, and we've made the argument. Never before have we had this level of technical, capital, and operating analysis done to make the argument of GO and how important it is. And currently, unfortunately, there are thousands of commuters every day traveling between Niagara Falls and Niagara and Hamilton and the GTA. And the proposal that we're going to show you today was a little bit of a different approach, where we're looking at an express route from Niagara Falls to Hamilton, going through St. Catharines and Grimsby, linking up with the Hamilton to the Toronto GO Express. So the opportunity here is two separate lines, one that will not have a negative impact on the other. So next I'd pass along to my compatriots here to continue on.
Yep.
So in terms of the economic benefits itself, those items are found in the business case and in the primer that's before you. So some of the highlights of the economic benefits, certainly it's been calculated that there's 1,200 full-time construction jobs to the construction of the GO line itself, the stations, the track work, what have you. 195 million in economic impact. and certainly a significant ability for employers to attract and retain talented staff, both public and private sector, as we can appreciate.
So as many of you know, back in March and April, we had the launch in Niagara Falls at the Go Via station. And that was critical because we had the plan. The plan was done. This plan came out last April. And it was important for us to share the information that we had gathered and also to create that public interest and public thrust for the campaign. So it was an opportunity to launch the website. It was an opportunity to get the public engaged and really to show Queen's Park that we had the momentum. That momentum was starting to build. And that was it was a critical part of this whole campaign to get us to where we are today, because while it's important for us to have the business case and it's important for the elected officials to go to Queen's Park and talk about the importance of Go in our community, it is the public interest, the public support that's really, I think, going to be the driver for the government to make critical decisions like this. And so it was a well-attended opportunity that really kick-started the social media side, the Facebook page, as well as the website, and it gained a lot of momentum right out of the gate. Matt?
Okay, so that being said, it has been several months since our last update, and I think it's incumbent upon us, that's sort of what today is about, is what have we been up to over the last number of months. As Mayor Senzik had said, with our business case submitted in April, we certainly know that the business case analysis is solid, it's comprehensive, and it's reasonable. And we've heard that praise from the province for the amount of effort and diligence that we've put into this. And at the end of the day, we're not just asking for Go train service. We actually put a blueprint together, and that document itself is that blueprint. It was a springboard from the EA that was completed in 2011. And it showed sort of a reasonable and financially reasonable manner in which we could actually execute Go service to Niagara. It's a solutions-based document, and it's been evolving, and I think that's part of what's made our proposal successful to date. With a number of the conversations that we've had, is that it's been an ongoing dialogue with the province and its transit agencies over the course of 2015. The environmental assessment had an ideal state, which included a $750 million canal crossing, whether a tunnel or a second bridge, a grade separation, if you will, in technical terms. But we certainly know that from that EA there was a lot more work to be done. And from there, as I said, our proposal has evolved over time. And we basically heard that we needed to respond with practical and feasible solutions to many of those concerns. Chief among them being the Lakeshore West Line. The Lakeshore West Line runs from Hamilton into Union Station and beyond, out to Pickering, east of Toronto. And the Lakeshore West Line, for those of you who take and Go, is the backbone of the Go network. And coupled with the canal crossing, there was a lot of concern that the backbone of the Go network could not be negatively impacted in any way. It couldn't be compromised, so we came up with the innovative solution of having a shuttle service, if you will, a Niagara line that ran from Niagara Falls into Hamilton and connected into the Lakeshore West Line from there. We certainly proposed a peak time daily service. So it was morning and evening that connected to Lakeshore West trains in the West Harbour station. West Harbour is the new name for James North, which is now in operation from the Pan Am Games. And we certainly proposed a service that could work within the existing infrastructure that was there. Part of what's made this viable, based on the conversations we've had with the province, has been around the fact that we've used the existing infrastructure that's there. Does it require upgrades? Yes, that's what's identified in that business case. But what makes it viable is coming up with solutions such as an alternative to the well and canal grade separation. So the business case analysis was certainly thorough, and we knew that Metrolinx and MTO needed time to review that document, and we embarked on that over the latter half of 2015. They had many questions. They challenged us to provide more due diligence, and the commitments of some of those items that were proposed. And part of that detailed negotiation occurred over the course of 2015.
Admittedly, and some would say that we've been a little bit too quiet about the GO plan over the past little while, but be confident that we have been working on it and working hard. The province told us loud and clear that they would like us to turn down the heat, is what they said in the public engagement segment, and we respected that, and that's exactly what we did. But we did not stop working on it. We worked harder than ever, meeting almost every week on the details and knocking off all of the barriers that were before us and making sure that we had our solid business case in front of us. They didn't want us to see that, they didn't want us to be negotiating our position instead of having our position land on its own merits. But rest assured, we were extremely busy working on the file, and we're very much on track today.
So really there were 17 key points that were raised by the province in 3 major themes, and we're going to go through those themes themselves. In their review of our business case, we did a lot of negotiations with the Ministry of Transportation, MTO, Metrolinx, and GO Transit. And there were 17 items that were identified. Some of these were pretty straightforward. Some of them required clarification in terms of some of the rationale that was used, or the formulas or data we used to arrive at some of the conclusions. In other cases, there were some lengthy negotiations that were required between those of us in the working group, the province and provincial agencies, Metrolinx and GO, CN and the Seaway as well. And we'll get into a bit of those discussions, but they were certainly required some discussions with people at very senior levels at other organizations outside of Niagara and outside of the formal working group between GO and Metrolinx and MTO.
So the elephant in the room all along has been the Welland Canal. And obviously the province has had some long-standing concerns about reliability and predictability, and we understand that because the GO has a solid record of being on time, and they don't want to have any kind of challenges to that on-time record. So we did run ghost trains. We did put the St. Lawrence Seaway together with Metrolinx. We did come together with solutions, and it was all around scheduling. Because as the ships come through, obviously the bridges go up, the trains can't go through. It's a simple matter of scheduling. So we've addressed that in our business plan, and we have come up with the solutions to that problem as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So service reliability was a critical piece, as Mayor Diodati had said. The challenge was that we needed to have a commitment from the Seaway to provide dedicated crossing times. It took months to establish an agreement. The Seaway, for what it's for their part, was very committed to sitting down with us. A lot of senior folks from Niagara had a lot of conversation. We met jointly with GO Transit, Metrolinx, the Seaway, and ourselves. We had separate conversations between Niagara and the Seaway. There was a lot of stakeholders that were involved, and there was a lot of challenges in terms of international shipping and regulatory challenges. We certainly know that there were operating issues that we had to understand before we could proceed. And at the end of the day, it took numerous meetings to get it done. I think the positive hurdle here, and this was a big milestone that we took off the table, the original operating scenario called for 14 crossings a day. And as we've indicated, this has been an evolving proposal, and part of that was around understanding the needs of some of the stakeholders. So with our original proposal having 14 crossings a day, 7 in each direction, we realized early on in our discussions with the Seaway that the frequency couldn't be guaranteed across the canal. And at the end of the day, we were looking for a commitment for guaranteed crossing times from the Seaway. So after considerable back and forth, in the end, we certainly received agreement from the Seaway that they would commit to 4 dedicated crossings into Niagara Falls each day. And this was a huge milestone, and as Mayor Diodati had indicated, it's been a long-standing issue with the province. And with the agreement in place, the canal was no longer an issue, and that was a big milestone.
One quick question
had.
before we go on. 4 crossings, is that 2 and 2?
Yes.
Okay.
So when it comes to the infrastructure, everyone knows that CN owns the rail infrastructure that the GO corridor would be on. And like other parts of the GO corridors, CN has the right-of-way, and they're also an integral part of that transportation network. And so when you look at what is required and what was in the business plan is making sure that CN was at the table, a willing partner, and also looking at the opportunity to invest what is required for the upgrades to the tracks, including up to $50 million. So we've got from CN that validation, but again, this took place in the summertime, and I'm going to ask Chair Kazan to speak more on this because there was a meeting that took place. It was organized by the region, but it required the local elected officials to go to Edmonton. And Chair, you can elaborate more on that.
Yeah, I can. We met with senior officials from CN, both in Ottawa and in Edmonton, Alberta, and we talked to them about our proposal. We talked to them about our identified upgrades of about $50 million, and at that time they committed to us and they understood that, agreed that there were no barriers to the proposal that we had put forward.
So the third theme was around ridership forecasting and economics. And we're trying to boil this stuff down. As I said, there's a considerable amount in that technical report in the back here. I'm going to try not to delve too much into benefit cost ratio analysis and other things, but it's suffice to say that numerous calculations went into the business case, and so naturally the province had a number of questions on how we arrived at that. They had questions about the data and the calculations we used to generate our positive benefit cost ratio to the province. Certainly both sides were challenging each other's assumptions, predictions and methodologies to generate the cost benefit ratios. And certainly the negotiations involved numerous sessions, and we were calculating on the fly, we were explaining our rationale, we were recalculating. We provided a number of various sensitivity analysis over the course of a number of months with Metrolinx to get ourselves into a position where, in the end, both parties agreed that there was a cost-benefit ratio that was +1. In the business case, it ranges at 1.85, and in simplistic terms, anything over 1 means that the project will return more than is invested up front.
We've worked very, very hard in the last year, and we've addressed every single challenge that the province and the agencies have brought to us. And I'm proud to say we always took the high road. We always did it in a positive way, constructive, responsive, collaborative, and at every turn we took the high road with the province because we see them as a partner. We're not adversaries, and I'm proud to say that both politically and at a staff level we worked very closely with them.
I couldn't agree more. And as I've said before, we continue to meet on a regular basis. We've met with provincial officials several times. We will continue to meet with provincial officials and have this discussion continue. We're confident that our business case that we put forward is sound and is very compelling.
And I guess that's one area where maybe we really didn't articulate how often we were meeting with the ministers, because during the Pan Am Games, all of us, all the mayors, had an opportunity to talk to the various ministers that either came here or when we went to Toronto to the different venues. The number of times that we've been in Toronto or Hamilton for different events where they've had ministers there, every time we've been able to talk about the business case, about where we are in terms of answering the questions that Metrolinx has brought forward. And we didn't articulate that back to the community, but it was more frequent than I think the government was used to when it comes to how often we were in front of a minister saying, here's the validation for go, here's why we need go, here's what we discover next. So Matt and the team were coming forward and saying, hey, we just checked off this off the list of questions that they had. And then 3 days later, we were in front of a minister saying, we checked that off the list, we're there, we're ready for go. So I think that the work that has gone in has been the substantive, not just validation, but getting in front of the different ministers and continuously making that point of why this was a strong business case. Because I think what we all recognize is that you can't go to government anymore with simply a motion and say, I want this. you have to go with a strong business case. And if nothing else, this is, I think, is one of the strongest business cases that they've seen for Go to be extended into a community in the entire Go network.
So